It was supposed to be just another quiet Saturday at the park. You know, birds chirping, lawn mowers buzzing in the distance, and the smell of freshly cut grass mixing with sunscreen and sidewalk chalk. My sister had begged me to come spend time with the family after months of late nights at the courthouse, and I finally gave in. I hadn't seen my nephew Max in weeks. He's 9 on the spectrum and obsessed with climbing structures. Give that kid a jungle gym and he's in his own world. No one bothers anyone here. That's why they moved to this neighborhood in the first place. But peace doesn't last long when power-hungry HOA types decide they're bored. And in this case, cruel. That's how a routine afternoon at the playground turned into a nightmare. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, because what happened to Max could happen anywhere, and no family deserves that. Max had his headphones, spinning in slow circles under the monkey bars. I was chatting with my sister, sipping lemonade from a thermos, when we heard shouting. A woman in a navy windbreaker, HOA patch right on the sleeve, stormed across the grass like she owned it. She pointed at Max like he was a stray dog. I stood up. "Is there a problem?" I asked. Her hand was already on her hip, and it wasn't for her phone. It was for the taser. 3 seconds later, Max was on the ground, screaming, his headphones torn off, his little body convulsing. My sister collapsed to her knees. People screamed. I froze, but not because I didn't know what to do. I froze because I knew exactly who I was dealing with, and who they were dealing with. The woman, her name would come later, but the face is etched into my brain, stood over Max with zero emotion, like she had just swatted a bug instead of tasing a child. I dropped to the ground beside him. Max, buddy, it's okay, it's me." He was still twitching, face contorted in pain and confusion, eyes wide and unblinking. My sister was screaming, full-blown panic. She tried to cradle him, but he flinched from her touch, his whole body in overdrive. I'd seen trauma before, but this was evil dressed up in khakis and a name badge. Paramedics were called by another mom at the playground, not the woman who did this. She just stood there, arms crossed, lips pursed like she was proud of herself. "He was uncooperative," she finally said. "The HOA rules are clear. No loitering under the structures." Loitering, that was her word for it. "He's a child," I barked, my voice shaking. "He wasn't loitering, he was playing." But she didn't even blink. She looked down at Max like he was defective. "And those headphones," she added, "could have been playing inappropriate audio. We have safety protocols." That's when I stood up, slowly. Max was being lifted onto a stretcher behind me, his arms twitching, face ghost white. I stepped closer to her than I probably should have. She didn't know me yet, not really. "I need your name," I said. "Now." She gave a smug little laugh. "Everything I did was within HOA authority. You can take it up with the board." "Oh, I will." I thought, I absolutely will. Because what she didn't realize, what she was about to learn in the hardest, most public way possible, was that I wasn't just Max's uncle. I wasn't just another angry family member. I was the newest addition to this state's Supreme Court bench, and she had just tasered the wrong child. We spent the night in the ER. Max didn't speak the whole time, not one word. He just stared at the ceiling, blinking in slow, uneven patterns, while nurses tried not to cry in front of him. My sister sat beside his bed, rocking slightly, whispering the lyrics to his favorite lullaby over and over. I stayed by the door, guarding it, I guess. From what, I wasn't even sure. But I needed to do something. I couldn't undo the pain, but I could stop it from ever happening again. Around 3 a.m., I stepped out to make a call to a colleague of mine who owed me a favor. "I need every HOA record from the last 3 years," I said. "Personnel, incident reports, budget allocations, the works." There was a long pause on the other end before he said, "Is this for a case?" I hesitated. "Yeah," I muttered, "one that's gotten personal." By noon the next day, Max was discharged. His vitals were stable, but the spark in his eyes, gone. It shattered something in me. My sister didn't ask questions when I said I needed to go handle something. She just hugged me and whispered, "Don't let her get away with it." First stop, the HOA office, one of those cookie-cutter buildings in the corner of a shopping plaza, wedged between a dry cleaner and a vape shop. I walked in wearing the same suit I'd worn for my judicial appointment 2 months earlier. The woman at the front desk gave me a once-over and asked if I had an appointment. "No," I said. "But they'll want to see me." She buzzed me in. I walked through that door like a storm in slow motion. Because justice wasn't just coming, it was dressed in robes, and today, it had my last name. The boardroom looked exactly how you'd expect, bland, beige, and overconfident. 5 people sat behind a laminate table, all stiff backs and polite smiles, the kind that never quite reached the eyes. And there she was, the woman who tased Max. Her nameplate read, Deirdre Kane, HOA Security Liaison. She looked up at me, and for a split second something flickered across her face. Recognition? Regret? Hard to say. But then she squared her shoulders and looked away like I was beneath her, like she was untouchable. I didn't sit. I slid a thick manila envelope across the table. "That's a copy of the incident report your security officer never filed. A paramedic filled it out instead." I paused. "Along with a subpoena for your association's security training logs, incident archives, and any and all internal communications referencing non-compliant children or loitering behavior at the park." Silence. Deirdre's mouth opened, then closed again. One of the board members cleared his throat. "Sir, with respect, this sounds more like a legal matter than something we can resolve in this room." "You're right," I said. "It is a legal matter. In fact, it'll soon be a matter of public record. Because I'm pursuing a formal complaint through the State Judicial Review Board, civil litigation on behalf of my nephew, and, pending outcome, a criminal negligence charge, possibly assault on a minor." Now the room changed. The polite smiles disappeared. Deirdre's face turned pale. Another board member, a younger man with too much gel in his hair, asked softly, "Wait, who are you?" I took out my wallet and laid it on the table. My state-issued judicial badge glinted in the light. "My name is Judge Carter Wells," I said quietly. "And this HOA just made the worst mistake of its existence. You'd think once they knew who I was, they'd start acting right. But that's the thing about people like Deirdre Kane and her kind. They don't believe consequences apply to them. They're too used to running things behind closed doors, making rules that only benefit their little circle, and punishing whoever doesn't fit their mold." Max wasn't the first kid she'd targeted, just the first with someone powerful enough to fight back. The deeper I dug, the uglier it got. I had my clerk pull archived complaints filed against the HOA, some dating back 6 years. Most were dismissed, insufficient evidence, or resolved eternally. But one stood out, a mother named Rachel Ortiz, whose daughter had a sensory processing disorder. She filed a grievance after her kid was screamed at by the same security officer, Deirdre, for hogging the swing. The board investigated and ruled it a misunderstanding. Rachel eventually moved out. I called her. She answered on the second ring. "This is Rachel. My name is Carter Wells. I'm a state judge, and I need to talk to you about what happened at the Willow Creek playground 3 years ago." There was a pause. Then, "You mean the woman? With the short hair and a god complex?" "Yeah," I said. "Her. Rachel met me that night. She brought photos, emails, even a voice recording, Deirdre threatening her with a citation if her daughter didn't follow the structure rotation policy. A rotation policy for swings. I was building a case now, not just for Max, for every family she'd steamrolled. I filed for a restraining order the next morning. The moment the clerk stamped it, I felt something shift. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about putting a stop to a pattern of cruelty, one playground at a time. I thought the restraining order would buy us time, maybe shake the board into some kind of accountability. Instead, it triggered something worse. 2 days after filing, my sister woke up to find a formal violation notice taped to her front door. Unsupervised minor exhibiting disruptive behavior. Max hadn't even left the house. They were playing dirty now, targeting her, targeting him. I rushed over, took one look at the notice, and tore it off the door. "They're trying to intimidate you," I said, "but I've got it handled." My sister just stared at me, her eyes hollow, like she hadn't slept in days. "He's not sleeping, Carter," she whispered. "He won't go outside. He keeps asking if the bad lady will be there." That broke me. I drove straight to the HOA office. Deirdre was gone, suspended pending the outcome of the investigation. But the board, still playing defense, still hiding behind language, like policy, procedure, and community safety. I slammed a file down on the counter. "This is your pattern," I said to the board president. "This is what you've allowed. You have 2 days to rescind every violation, issue a formal apology, and cover Max's medical bills. Or this goes to the State Ethics Committee." He didn't even flinch, just gave a tight smile and said, "We'll let our legal counsel respond." So I made another call, this time to the media. That night, every local news station in a 100-mile radius aired the headline, "Judge accuses HOA of targeting child with autism. Files suit after nephew tased at local playground." The next morning, we woke up to a crowd outside, neighbors, reporters, supporters holding signs. And then, quietly, almost sheepishly, Rachel Ortiz showed up. Behind her, 7 other families. This wasn't just our fight anymore. We met in my sister's living room, 8 families, each with their own version of the same story. Kids with disabilities, single parents, immigrants, anyone who didn't fit Deirdre's definition of ideal resident. One dad brought emails where she threatened fines over his son's therapy dog, intimidating children. A grandmother had phone recordings of her being berated for letting her autistic grandson flap his hands too close to other residents. Every story cut deeper than the last. We put it all on the table, literally. Printouts, screenshots, timestamps. I organized it like a war room, color-coded folders, a shared drive, sworn statements. We weren't just angry anymore. We were, aligned. That same day, I filed a multi-party civil rights complaint. Discrimination, negligence, abuse of power, and I added something extra, an emergency petition for a temporary injunction to freeze all HOA enforcement activity until the investigation concluded. Within hours, it was granted. No more threats, no more bogus violations, no more hiding behind HOA jargon. The board tried to act unfazed, but the cracks showed. Emails leaked. One revealed they were warned about Deirdre's behavior months ago and did nothing. Another exposed that their attorney, yes, the same one who tried to stonewall me, had urged them to quietly settle with Rachel back in the day to avoid reputation risk. Too late for that now. By Friday, a state senator called for a formal review of the HOA's charter. A week later, a news crew ran a full exposé on discriminatory enforcement across similar neighborhoods statewide. Our case had lit the match, but that wasn't the win yet. The win was watching Max, quiet, brilliant Max, peek through the blinds and whisper, "Why are there nice people on our sidewalk?" I knelt beside him. "Because they're standing with you now, buddy." The court date came fast, faster than most thanks to media pressure and a sympathetic judge who cleared her calendar for us. I stood in that packed courtroom in a navy suit and polished shoes, but underneath it all I was just a furious uncle holding the line for a little boy who deserved so much better. My sister sat behind me, gripping Max's weighted blanket in her lap like it was armor. He didn't come inside. We let him wait outside with a trusted friend, someone who understood his world. This wasn't a place he needed to be. But Deirdre? She showed up, no security badge, no smugness, just pale lips, shaking hands, and a lawyer 2 steps behind her who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. We laid it all out, the footage, the records, the testimonies from every family she'd harassed. When Rachel took the stand and played that voice memo, Deirdre barking at a child for swinging too long, you could feel the whole courtroom lean forward. When the ER doctor testified about the physical trauma from the taser, a juror actually gasped. Deirdre's defense was paper thin. She said she feared for the safety of other children, that Max appeared agitated and non-compliant. But the video? It showed a little boy spinning gently under a jungle gym, not bothering a soul. There was no threat, only misunderstanding and cruelty. The judge didn't need long. She ruled the HOA had acted beyond its authority. The taser incident was an unlawful use of force. Deirdre was to be permanently barred from any security-related roles in any community association statewide. The board president resigned on the spot. The courtroom didn't cheer, but my sister cried. And as we stepped outside into the sunlight, Max looked up and said, "Is it done?" I knelt down, smiling through tears. It is now. Justice doesn't always feel like a parade. Sometimes it feels like stillness, like walking outside your front door and realizing no one's watching, no one's waiting to pounce. That's what it felt like for my sister the week after the ruling. The violation notices stopped. The HOA's newsletter skipped a week. Even the usual passive-aggressive lawn notes vanished. Silence, for once, wasn't scary. It was peace. Max still had hard days. The tremors didn't stop overnight. Loud noises made him flinch. The playground. He wouldn't even look at it. But healing isn't about forgetting. It's about safety. Safety gives kids like Max the chance to come back to themselves. The state opened a full audit on the HOA's operations. Turns out Deirdre had been a volunteer enforcer for years, with no formal training, no psychological screening, and zero accountability. Her taser? Purchased with HOA discretionary funds under the pretense of deterrent measures. It was never approved in any public meeting. Just slipped through. They thought no one would notice. By month's end, 3 more board members had stepped down. The HOA was put under emergency review, and residents voted to install a new leadership team, including, ironically, Rachel Ortiz, who took over as interim president. No more playground politics, she told the crowd at the first open forum. This place belongs to all of us now. As for me, I stayed involved, but in the background. My job wasn't to lead the neighborhood. I already had a courtroom. For that, but I showed up. I helped draft the new community safety policies. I made sure no one ever again had the authority to weaponize rules against the most vulnerable. And one afternoon, weeks later, I pulled into my sister's driveway and saw something I hadn't seen in months. Max, on the swings, smiling. He wasn't swinging high, not yet. Just little kicks, back and forth like he was testing the wind. My sister sat on the bench nearby, hands folded in her lap, watching without saying a word. I didn't speak either. I just dropped onto the grass and let the quiet hold us. Max had his headphones on, a soft instrumental loop playing, the one he always listened to when he needed the world to make sense. It hit me then, how easily we could have lost him. Not just physically, but completely. The spark, the trust, the willingness to engage. That taser didn't just strike his body, it shook his entire sense of safety. And yet here he was, gently swaying under the same sky where it all went down. I told him the bad lady's gone, my sister said quietly. He asked if she had to sit in a timeout. I laughed under my breath. Something like that. The news cycle moved on. Of course. The headlines faded. The public outrage turned to the next scandal, the next injustice. But the families who stood with us, they stayed. Barbecues replaced board meetings. Neighbors started waving again. And every child at that park knew the new rule. Not posted, not printed, but understood. Kindness is the law now. I don't wear my robe when I visit them. I don't bring my gavel. I bring a bucket of chalk, a box of juice, and whatever Lego set Max is currently obsessed with. That's my bench now, the one next to the swings. You don't need a courtroom to deliver justice. Sometimes it's as simple as showing up, protecting your people, and never letting anyone mistake silence for weakness again. Because in our neighborhood, the quiet speaks volumes now, and it's on Max's terms.